Welcome to the deep dive.
Ah.
You've shared your sources, and we're here to really extract the crucial knowledge, the insights that cut through all the noise. Today, we're heading back in time, sort of pulling apart these excerpts from the Book of Nehemiah.
Yeah, these are fascinating texts. They give such a remarkable look at, well, a community really facing ruin and the kind of leadership that stepped up.
Right.
Our story kicks off in Shushan, Susa, the palace city. This is during King Artaxerxes' reign.
Okay.
And it's from here that Nehemiah, he's serving in quite a prominent role in the king's household. He gets this absolutely devastating news.
Who brings it?
It's brought by Hanani and some others who'd been back to Jerusalem. They'd returned from exile.
And the news is just stark, isn't it? Jerusalem's wall is, well, shattered. Its gates are burned down.
Yeah, total devastation.
You can just picture the vulnerability, the psychological hit of living in a city that exposed. So our mission, really, in this deep dive, is to get a handle on Nehemiah's response, his strategy, the actions he takes, and how he manages to spearhead rebuilding Jerusalem.
And it's packed, isn't it, with lessons on leadership, community mobilization, things that still resonate.
Totally.
Yeah.
So how does he first react when he hears this?
Well, the impact is immediate and really powerful. The text says he just sat down and wept and mourned certain days and fasted and prayed.
So not just a fleeting sadness.
No, this was deep, extended grief, spiritual reflection.
Yeah.
This deep concern is really the bedrock for everything he does next. His empathy and turning straight to prayer, it really stands out.
And that prayer, it's recorded right there in the first chapter, gives us such a window into him. It's not just like a general plea.
Exactly. It's specific. It's layered.
Okay, so let's unpack it a bit. He starts off acknowledging God's greatness, the covenant.
Right, recognizing the divine framework, you could say.
Then he shifts to confession. That feels significant.
It really is. And he doesn't just confess Israel's sins. He includes his own house, his own family.
That shared responsibility, owning it himself, too.
It's powerful. It avoids just blaming others, right? It fosters this collective sense of, we need to fix this.
And then he appeals, reminding God of that promise to regather his people if they turn back.
Even if they're scattered everywhere. He's using God's own words strategically.
Very strategic. And then, super practically, he asks for favor with this man, King Artaxerxes, obviously, and mentions his job, cupbearer.
Yeah, it shows he's thinking ahead. It's not just spiritual. He's positioning himself for, well, the next move.
Okay, so some time passes. The text mentions moving from the month Chislev to Nisan.
Right, a few months later. Same year, the 20th of Artaxerxes. Nehemiah is doing his job, presenting wine to the king, normal routine.
But this time it's different.
Yeah, he's visibly sad. Apparently he'd always kept it together in front of the king before.
And the king notices.
He does. Pretty perceptive. Asks him straight up, why the sad face? You're not sick? Must be heartache.
And Nehemiah admits he was scared. I mean, you can imagine.
Right.
Approaching a powerful king like that, looking unhappy.
It's super risky. But his answer is respectful, yet direct. He explains it's because Jerusalem, the city where my fathers are buried, is in ruins.
That personal connection and the ancestral graves, that probably struck a chord, even with a Persian king.
Likely. Respect for lineage was, a common thing.
So then the king asks the big question, what do you want?
Yeah. And right there, Nehemiah says a silent prayer before answering. That little moment, seeking guidance before speaking. It says a lot.
It really does.
Yeah.
What does he ask for?
It's bold and detailed. He wants to be sent to Judah to rebuild the city. He needs letters for safe passage from the governors.
Right, the bureaucracy.
Exactly. And timber. From Asaph, the keeper of the king's forest, for the gates and walls.
And the king agrees.
He does. The queen's even there. The king sets a time frame for his return and gives him a military escort, army captains, horsemen.
Wow, that's serious support. Shows the kind of favor Nehemiah had.
Yeah, likely a mix of his position, his character, and maybe some political calculations by the king, too.
So Nehemiah makes it to Jerusalem. But his arrival isn't exactly welcomed by everyone.
No, definitely not. We meet Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite. They are immediately unhappy that someone's there to help the Israelites.
Instant opposition sets the stage.
Yeah, it's that classic dynamic, isn't it?
Right.
People comfortable with the status quo resisting change, especially if it threatens their own influence.
And Nehemiah's smart about it. He doesn't just announce his grand plan on day one.
Nope. He keeps quiet for 3 days, probably assessing, gathering intel.
Then comes that nighttime survey. I find this part fascinating.
Me too. It's very strategic. Just a few trusted guys under the cover of darkness nobody else knows.
He's meticulously checking the damage himself. Valley Gate, Dragonwell, Dungport.
Fountain Gate, King's Pool. He needed that first-hand look, didn't he? To really understand the scale of the job before making a move.
That personal assessment seems crucial. Ground truth.
Absolutely. It lets him plan properly. Only after that does he start rallying the people.
How does he approach them?
He gathers the community leaders, nobles, officials, priests, and lays it out. Paints a picture of their distress, the humiliation, and calls them to rebuild the wall.
He frames it as restoring their dignity, not just fixing stones.
Exactly. And he offers hope. He tells them how God's hand has been on him, mentions the king's support.
That combination, divine favor, royal backing, must have been powerful.
It was. It ignites something. They respond together. Let us rise up and build. Real collective resolve.
But that enthusiasm immediately faces pushback.
Oh, yeah. Sanballat, Tobiah, now Geshem the Arabian too. They react with, total scorn.
Yeah.
Mockery, accusations of rebellion against Persia.
Trying to undermine them, sow doubt about their loyalty.
Classic tactic. But Nehemiah doesn't flinch. He fires back, basically saying, God will give us success. We're his servants. We'll build. You guys have no part in this.
Powerful assertion of purpose. And a clear boundary.
Definitely. Then chapter 3 dives into the actual rebuilding. And it's amazing, the level of detail.
It shows it wasn't just Nehemiah, it was a huge team effort.
Massive collaboration. Starts with the high priest Eliashib, working on the sheep gate, likely symbolic, for temple access.
Then others join in, men from Jericho, the sons of Hasna. The text names specific people and groups.
It does. Families, like Shallum and his daughters pitching in, occupational groups, goldsmiths, perfumers, repairing specific gates, specific sections of the wall.
Fish Gate, Old Gate, Valley Gate. It shows incredible organization.
It really does. Widespread commitment. But there's also that little note about the nobles of Tekoa.
Ah, yes. The ones who didn't participate.
Right. Did not put their shoulders to the work. A realistic touch, Even with a great cause, not everyone jumps in. Leadership challenge right there.
So the wall starts going up, but the opposition gets angrier.
Yeah, Sanballat and Tobiah ramp up the mockery. Remember that taunt about a fox being able to knock down their wall?
Sounds petty, but it shows their desperation, I guess.
Definitely. And it wasn't just external pressure. There were internal challenges, too.
Like what?
Discouragement among the workers. It was hard labor, tons of rubble. Morale starts dipping. That's tough for a leader fighting enemies outside and fatigue inside.
And then the threats turn physical.
Exactly. Sanballat, Tobiah, Arabians, Ammonites, Ashdodites, they conspire to attack Jerusalem to stop the work by force.
And word gets back. People nearby hear about it.
Yeah, Jews living near these groups bring reports. Constant fear, uncertainty.
How does Nehemiah handle that crisis?
Textbook leadership? Really? No panic. Strategic defense. He sets up armed guards, organized by family, at the weak points.
And gives a speech.
Yeah, a powerful one. Reminds them to trust God, fight for their families, their homes. Taps into those deep motivations.
And then that amazing strategy, build and defend at the same time.
So innovative. Half-worked, half-held weapons, builders with swords at their sides, a trumpeter ready to sound the alarm.
Incredible coordination. Shows real resolve.
It does. So direct attacks aren't working. The opposition tries something else. Deception.
Trying to lure Nehemiah away.
Yep. Sanballat and Geshem keep inviting him for a meeting out on the plain of Ono. Let's talk. But their real plan was to harm him.
And Nehemiah sees right through it.
He does. Famous reply. I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. Why should the work stop while I leave it? Just total focus. He knew his presence was critical.
But they don't give up. Sanballat tries spreading rumors.
Right. An open letter this time, full of lies. Nehemiah's planning rebellion, wants to be king, appointed prophets. Sending it open was meant to spread fear among everyone.
Nasty stuff. And there's that incident with Shemaiah, too.
Shemaiah tries to scare him, prophesies an assassination attempt, tells Nehemiah to hide in the temple.
But Nehemiah realizes it's a setup.
Yeah, he discerns it's not from God, refuses to hide, says, should a man like me run away? He knew fleeing would destroy morale. Courageous stand.
And the intimidation just keeps coming. Tobiah and Sanballat using hired people, exploiting connections.
Constantly. Tobiah had connections through marriage to some Judean nobles, people sworn to him. So there was this internal network of potential pressure Nehemiah had to manage.
It's relentless opposition. But despite all that,
they finished the wall in just 52 days. Astonishingly fast.
Must have been a huge boost for the Jews and a shock to their enemies.
Absolutely. The text says the enemies were afraid, lost their confidence because they realized God had helped them. It validated Nehemiah's leadership and their faith.
Okay, so the wall's up. What's next? Can't just have a wall.
Smart move by Nehemiah. He immediately turns to organizing the city itself. Hanging the gates, appointing gatekeepers, singers, Levites for the temple service.
Putting people in charge.
Yes, his brother Hanani and another trusted man, Hananiah, known for integrity and fearing God. They're put in charge of Jerusalem.
Security seems key.
Definitely. Clear rules about opening and closing gates, setting up watches, with residents guarding near their own homes, fosters that sense of shared responsibility.
But there's a population problem, right? Big city, few people.
Yeah, it's spacious but sparsely populated. So Nehemiah initiates a genealogical census.
Not just for history, but practical.
Very practical. Identify who had ancestral ties, encourage resettlement, make the city viable long-term.
And they find an old register.
They do. From the first wave of returnees. Lists families, numbers, origins, priests, Levites, singers, gatekeepers, temple servants, all sorts. Vital for reestablishing social order, property rights.
How do they get more people into Jerusalem?
They draw lots. 1 in 10 from the surrounding areas has to move into the city. But some also volunteered, which was commended.
Smart way to repopulate the capital. Chapter 11 lists some of the leaders who moved in.
Right. It was a strategic effort to revitalize Jerusalem as the community center.
So physical rebuilding done, organization started. But Nehemiah knows that's not enough.
Exactly. He understands true restoration needs a spiritual foundation. The focus shifts to religious renewal.
This involves Ezra, the priest and scribe.
Yes, a big moment. All the people gather unified in the square by the water gate. Ezra reads the law of Moses for hours.
And the people listen attentively.
Incredibly attentive, standing, listening, shows a real hunger for spiritual guidance.
And the Levites help explain it.
Crucial role. Making sure people actually understood what was being read, what it meant for them.
And the reaction is emotional weeping.
Deeply emotional. They weep when they understand the words. Shows real conviction, recognizing past failings, wanting to live right.
But they're told not just to mourn.
Right. Nehemiah, Ezra, the Levites tell them, stop weeping, rejoice, this day is holy. Celebrate, share with the poor, find strength in God. It's that balance, acknowledge the past, embrace hope.
And they study the law more and rediscover the Feast of Booths.
Yeah, the command to live in temporary shelters, sukkot, for the festival. And they observe it enthusiastically on a scale not seen since Joshua's time. Shows their renewed commitment.
Then another gathering, more solemn this time.
24th day of the month. Fasting, sackcloth, confessing sins, separating from foreigners, a sign of commitment to spiritual purity. Hours spent reading the law, confessing, worshiping. Deep stuff.
And the Levites lead a big prayer, recounting their history.
A long, powerful prayer. God's faithfulness versus Israel's repeated disobedience leading to exile, puts their current situation in context, reinforces their responsibility.
All this leads to making a formal covenant.
A firm covenant. Written down, sealed by leaders, Levites, priests. The whole community agrees to follow God's law.
Specific commitments.
Very specific. No intermarriage with surrounding peoples. Observe the Sabbath, the sabbatical year. Support the temple financially, contributions, wood offerings, first fruits, tithes. A real blueprint for community life.
But Nehemiah has to leave for a while, go back to the king.
Yes, he returns to Artaxerxes. But when he comes back to Jerusalem later, well, he finds some problems.
Uh-oh, what kind of problems?
Eliashib, the high priest, had gotten cozy with Tobiah, their old enemy, and actually gave him a room in the temple complex.
Seriously, inside the temple courts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A clear violation of everything they'd agreed upon. Nehemiah is understandably furious.
What does he do?
Doesn't hesitate. Throws all of Tobiah's stuff out of the room. Orders it purified, sends a clear message about upholding the covenant and temple sanctity.
He also finds issues with supporting the Levites.
Right. They'd been neglected, weren't getting their provisions, so they'd left their temple duties just to survive.
Yes.
Nehemiah confronts the officials, gets the system working again.
And the Sabbath is being ignored again, too.
People are trading, working. He confronts the nobles, stations guards at the gates to stop merchants coming in on the Sabbath, really enforcing that rest day.
What about the intermarriage issue? That seems persistent.
It is. He finds Jews married to women from Ashdod, Ammon, Moab. He confronts them forcefully, curses them, apparently even pulls out some of their hair. Drastic measures.
Yeah. He even brings up King Solomon's mistakes as a warning.
Yeah, reminding them how foreign wives led even Solomon astray. And he expels a grandson of the high priest because he'd married Sanballat's daughter. No compromise on that front.
He really cleans house.
He does. And the book includes his personal prayers, asking God to remember his efforts for the people and the temple.
So after all this rebuilding reform, the final big event is the dedication of the wall itself.
Yes, chapter 12. A joyous climax. Levites gathered, thanksgiving, singing, music. A real celebration.
How did the dedication ceremony work?
2 big processions, giving thanks. They move in opposite directions along the top of the wall. Leaders, priests with trumpets, Levites with instruments. Must have been quite a sight and sound.
An atmosphere of relief and triumph.
Totally. Great sacrifices offered, widespread joy, women, children, everyone celebrating. The sound reportedly carried a long way off.
And they set up systems to keep the temple running.
Right. Appoint people to manage the treasuries, collect the offerings, tithes, ensure the priests and Levites are supported, reinforcing that commitment to religious practice based on precedents from David and Solomon.
So looking back over this deep dive, it's an incredible journey, isn't it? From utter despair over ruins.
To a rebuilt city, a renewed covenant, a reorganized community. It's quite the transformation.
Nehemiah's leadership really shines through. That initial response, the planning, the sheer perseverance against opposition.
Absolutely. And his commitment to both the physical rebuilding and the spiritual well-being of the people, those lessons feel timeless.
It really is you thinking, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
How do we face huge challenges today in our own communities or lives?
Right. How do you mobilize people? How do you keep going when everything seems against you?
And that balance Nehemiah struck between, practical action, strategic thinking, and holding on to deep spiritual conviction. How do we find that balance ourselves?
That's the question, isn't it? How do these ancient struggles and solutions speak to our world now? Something to really chew on after this deep dive.